This is the Unison Performance Case by Analog Cases. I spent some time with it before, deciding to make a video about it. I've had the case for a few months now, which I think is important for discussing something like this, as durability and function are incredibly important aspects to what it is. Anyway, Analog Cases. If you're anything like me, I'd guess there's a reasonably high likelihood that you've encountered their advertising on social media or Instagram or whatever. Maybe you saw the advertising and wondered to yourself, this is neat. Actually, something like this may make a lot of sense in my life. If that's you, hi, I'm that person too. Anyway, I decided to pull the trigger recently and grab their larger 32-inch by 19.3-inch case. Looks good.
A brief aside, when I was trying to do my usual due diligence in researching a product before I buy it, I found it actually kind of challenging to find people using the case the way I plan to, or any reviews at all. This is the kind of thing that makes me want to make a video.
That being said, this video is going to be slightly more review-like than my typical fare. As something like this is precisely as useful as it is practical, there's not a huge amount of artful subjectivity to consider when talking about a case for your neato stuffs. So, my plan is to talk about why I picked it up, how I'm using it, and how it compares to the expectations that I brought to the purchase. The case is hardy, but quite lightweight. There's an aluminum frame with matching locks and handle. It came with 2 keys for the locks and an amount of what claims to be industrial strength Velcro.
I actually forgot to measure how much it came with before I started chopping it up.
The body of the case is made out of ballistic nylon, which sounds pretty butch. I can tell you that it loves picking up fingerprints, but I can also tell you that it stands up to being tossed into my trunk or knocked into a turnstile really well. Suffice it to say, I'm happy with its durability so far. The interior of the half that's meant to become your workspace is covered with a nice tufty material, designed to interface quite nicely with Velcro. The Velcro they provide. I have to admit, I hesitated to put Velcro on my gear. It feels like a commitment. I got through it by reminding myself how practical this whole biz will be if everything comes together as planned. At the time of recording, I can thankfully say that I don't find myself regretting anything. Though, being unaware of how thoroughly industrial strength the Velcro actually is, I may have gotten away with using a little bit less. In the ads I mentioned earlier, I remember noticing that the pictures featured didn't seem to present what I'd call real-world setups so much, in the sense that, no power cables or patch cables were present. I had trouble finding people online deploying the Unison case the way I planned to, so I'd be very happy to demonstrate a configuration that I've been deploying a lot in a project I'm in right now. 32 by 19.3 inches is a decent amount of space to work with. It's the larger of the 2 options offered for the Unison case. I'd say any bigger would be a cumbersome carrying experience. The lightweight of the case is appreciated because the weight of the gear inside obviously adds up quickly. It's important to note that gear, like I have here, often needs to be plugged into more than 1 or 2 things in order to work. This obviously means factoring in space for your power, patches, and whatnot. Right-angle connectors will be your friends. Space for this sort of thing really adds up. This is a setup I'm finding myself out and about with the most at the moment. I know I can fit a little more in here, but I don't mind a little extra space for odds and ends. Much safe, very secure. We'll see how it sticks. The lid is attached and detached by this interlocking hinge mechanism. It's a little tricky to use at first, but I've gotten faster and faster at doing the thing. This is me trying to demonstrate how it works in the kitchen. I'm still bringing a backpack, but just a power supply and some cables. I was motivated to try one of these out for a couple of reasons. I recently found myself throwing gear into a backpack and taking the train into Manhattan to play with some folks on the regular. In the past, I was accustomed to throwing my keyboards into purpose-built cases and hauling those all over. But as I've been opting to gig with more modular sort of setups, I felt the need to explore different options. Throwing these more modular sort of setups in my backpack with a bunch of spaghetti became tedious and annoying pretty quickly. Gear is prone to sort of bouncing around and such. Even then, when I get to where I'm going, it's a whole other chore getting everything set up. So you can imagine that I'd just be over the moon to be able to throw some gear in here and leave this mess 90% plugged in. This cuts down on my setup time substantially. It's the dream of people who find themselves gigging with these sort of impractical sort of setups.
Right? Yeah. That's how we like to do it. Oh, hey, Sam. How we doing?
A dream come true, perhaps. Everything in the case stays put really securely, which is great. Some of this stuff is pretty hefty, and I'm really stoked that it's working as intended. I didn't buy this case planning on making a video about it. I bought the Unison case because I felt like it would make doing stuff that I'm already doing easier to do. It has. I can actually say that it's made certain things easier to the point where I'm going out with more fiddly setups now, because the act of setting up on location isn't as daunting. Setup. Generally speaking, I'd say the Unison case has met or exceeded my expectations.
So the system isn't perfectly perfect in the sense that, like, if there were an easier way to pass through cables or supply power, I'm not sure what that would look like in the case, to be honest. But if that were possible, that would be bananas. Regardless, though, I can't currently think of a better way to bring around the stuff that I'm bringing around.
The ability to set up a setup in the case, sound check it really quick, close it, and show up somewhere else ready to play in 5 minutes, it's absolutely killer. I feel quite safe with my gear inside of it, and I'm looking forward to hitting the road with this much more. It's a system that's meeting my needs quite nicely. With the amount of time and headaches saved, I honestly feel like the Unison case has paid for itself already. I'm excited to think of more setups to do with it. Do you bring your gear on the road? How are you doing it? Is it like this? Like that? Maybe you think gear like this belongs in the studio, and that's it. Maybe you believe that gear like this is wholly impractical to gig with. Maybe you're like, come on, just use your Roland. It's got 1,001 presets and has a case with the handle. Well, to that, I'd say, I often bring that too. Tell me. I'm happy to know whatever you're thinking in the comments. And if you're up for it, maybe like and subscribe.